Yeah, okay. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon. This is Sarah from the employment team at Multicultural Association of Fredericton. So, hope you are all doing well, staying safe and healthy. So far, the news are optimistic, so let's hope for the best. Actually, today we are hosting two special guests from Working MB, Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor within Government of New Brunswick. Nicola Anderson and Angela Nelson. Welcome, Nicola. Welcome, Angela.
Welcome, both of you.
Welcome, both of you. So today, Nicola and Angela, they are going to answer your HR-related questions since they have a great depth of experience in this field. First of all, let me introduce Nicola Anderson. So Nicola, she is a workforce consultant at Working MB. She is well versed in employment recruitment, retention, and implementation of strategies that bring together the job seekers and the employers. She has over 10 years of experience in different roles actually, around management, events, networking, and stakeholder relations, communication, marketing of government, academia, and media in Ontario and the New Brunswick. So actually, Nicola, prior to her current role here at Working MB, she specialized in marketing and public relations for Canada #1 parenting magazine. She is a speaker and facilitator as well at numerous conferences and events, and has delivered workshops to thousands of job seekers and adult learners. So welcome, Nicola. And
Thank you for being with us.
thank you for being with us. And now my colleague Rufaida, also from the employment team, she would like to introduce Angela. So for you, Rufaida.
Yeah, so a few words about Angela Nelson. She's also a workforce consultant with Working NB. This is also a department with the post-secondary education and training with the government of New Brunswick. So prior to the government work, she worked in recruitment and sales, helping businesses find new talents. So she has a passion for working with businesses and supporting them with their human resource needs. Angela is a graduate of St. Mary's University with a bachelor's degree in psychology, a certificate in human resource management, and master's in business administration from the Wilfrid Laurier University. She's also a member of Human Resource Association of New Brunswick for the last 8 years. So welcome, Angela, and thank you for being with us for the session today. So over to Nicola and Angela for the session to start. And I request everybody to mute your screens, and you can have a Q&A at the end of the session. So over to Nicola and Angela.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a nice introduction. Angela and I are both really happy to be here. Usually we are just working on the same floor together, just a few offices away, and we can go back and forth. And you know, it's different to do a webinar, but we still were able to do it together. We always talk about how we love to do presentations and different events together. So we were happy to be asked to do this. Thank you. Angela and I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through, and I'll be speaking some, Angela will jump in, and then as you mentioned, we can do a Q&A. And what we tried to address in this PowerPoint presentation were some questions that were brought forward to us from MCAF. So thank you very much for giving us those in advance, and hope we can do the best we can to find you those answers. The Working NB, just to give you a little bit of an explanation of what that even means. Working NB is the name of a branch within the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, and that department is part of the Government of New Brunswick, so the provincial government. And in our particular office, we basically try to help people understand how to prepare for work, how to find work, how to get attached to the local labor market. We have Working NB offices all over the province. Angela and I are based out of the Fredericton office, which is located at 300 St. Mary's Street on the 3rd floor. But if you went online and searched for Working NB or Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, you could find links to locations across the province. And certainly if you called the wrong number, the wrong office, they direct you in the right place. The majority of clients we work with are unemployed, but some do currently have jobs, but they're not working, say, in the field that they were trained for. They could be underemployed. Maybe they have a degree in something and they're waiting tables right now just to make ends meet. So they want to meet with one of our employment counselors to help them kind of get on track. And then we do have a lot of clients too that come to us as students and just trying to prepare for when they graduate, or they become students sometimes after meeting with us, so they go back to school. And we also work with businesses too. That's what Angela and I do more so, is the business side of things. And overall, our mission is basically to help local employers with their recruitment, so attraction, retention, and training needs. HR support services is what we call it. Did you want to take this one, Angela?
Oh, sure. So I really appreciate everyone giving us the opportunity to come and speak today. It's really exciting. I love helping people and helping connect them with opportunities, or providing support as you look for opportunities. So as Nicola mentioned, we work directly with business, but we have about 10 employment counselors in the office that work directly with clients looking for work. And they're there really to support with one-on-one relationship building and support, and to create an employment action plan. So basically what they do, they go through a career decision plan that they'll work together with you one-on-one to determine what it is that you're looking for. They'll help you with job search strategies and techniques. I know Nicola used to do this, but she used to give a virtual, not a virtual, it used to be a workshop to help, support around clients looking for work. It could be, how to dress, what questions to ask, how do you get your resume up to date? So those were a lot of the support that Nicola used to do, but now she's moved into more on the business side. It could be too, as Nicola mentioned, there are some individuals that come to us looking to upgrade their skills and, maybe move into a different career path. We also have launched a new, it's called experiential learning opportunity called Workplace Connections. It was supposed to be launched in April. However, with the virus, that has been delayed, and we're just waiting to hear how that will work. But basically how that was supposed to work is any of our clients that we had, based on their employment action plan, we would try to connect them with employment opportunities and businesses that we work with. And there would be a wage subsidy attached. We had undergone a number of changes late November, and some of our wage subsidy programs had been changed. And basically what we're trying to do is make those connections into the labor market, because once you get your foot in the door, that's where you can showcase your experience, your education, what you can provide to businesses. So sometimes it's really a matter of getting your foot in the door, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how to connect with employers today.
Great. So as Angela mentioned, we had some plans of things that were supposed to be launched, and then COVID-19 came along, and that's really what we're addressing today, is how to job search in the current situation that we're all in, because employers are still looking to hire, maybe more so in certain sectors than others, but you still see jobs advertised all the time. And some tips of what you can do now, even though there's that social distancing piece, how you can still make this work for you to find employment, and then in particular focusing on the power of networking. Usually when we talk about networking, we're recommending that you try to actually go to a face-to-face event and meet with an employer, or, you know, maybe it starts through an email, but we always want to push you to meet with them face to face. But since that's likely not happening for a little while longer, we really want to talk about online networking and what your different options would be there. And both Angela and I have, you know, lots of stories about the power of networking in our own career and how that opened the door for us. And we can share those too. So when you think of networking, really what it is relationship building. It's about building these positive professional working relationships with people you already know, so strengthening those, or creating new ones with you know, employers or people working in a company that you are interested in. So it's such an important strategy because once people, you know, have already had some exposure to you, they've talked to you a little bit, you're on their radar, they remember you a bit more, right? And everybody does like to hire someone that they've had some exchange with, or somebody knows this person, kind of puts in a good word for them, a recommendation. There's some sort of comfort level there. And most of us, you know, we don't, if we knew the right networking connection, we'd have the job we wanted. So most of us don't already have that connection. And what can we do to get that? How can we form a connection on our own? And part of networking, you might have heard the term the hidden job market. And all that means is that some jobs are unadvertised. And there are various reasons why they could be unadvertised. Some employers, they just don't ever have to advertise. They have so much demand. People are applying all the time anyway, so they don't bother with it. Other times it might be a position that's coming up. You know, it might not be ready to be advertised. Like you could be filling say a potential retirement that might be happening in a couple months, or someone going on maternity leave, things like that, contract positions. So these jobs exist, but there's various reasons why they aren't advertised publicly. And by networking and building relationships with others, this is where you're going to hear about some of those options. Or if you are still applying for jobs that you see advertised online, it will, you know, make your name stand out when they see your resume come through, because they've already met you, or, you know, someone else has referred you on to them. So it's really about building awareness of who you are, because even if you have a great work experience, great skills, knowledge, personality, you present really well, you're, you know, willing to do anything, you're still just your resume is still just an email, or still just a piece of paper you're handing around. And you need to meet people. You need to put yourself in new situations to build awareness of who you are, so people remember that you're looking for work and your skill set that you have, and also, you know, they've met you, they've seen your face, right? They have this positive interaction with you. So those two things need to come together. And right now, since we can't do the face-to-face thing, when I talk about networking, I'd be referring to using LinkedIn to connect with people, to send messages on LinkedIn. Email could be another option, webinars like this, telephone, of course, and video chat as well. Those are all some possibilities. And you can hop over to the next slide. Okay, so basic networking, you know, you can kind of start with the people that you know, people that are already in your network. You might not have been referring to this group of people as your network, but I'll explain who would be in your current network. Connections that you already have, people that already have jobs, people that are married to someone that has a job, you know, and so on. So in your existing network, it would be things like friends and family. It might be a past employer you had, so your boss at a past company you worked at, some of your coworkers. It could be your neighbors, teachers, coaches, that for yourself, for your children. Maybe you volunteer somewhere. All of those people, they might be, you know them as a volunteer, but they probably have worked in the past. They might be currently working too. And people you know through extracurricular activities like sports teams, some clubs you're a part of, a religious affiliation, anything like that. You have to remember that all of these individuals have likely worked before, or there's someone, you know, that they're very close with who has worked. So they do have some labor market knowledge. They might have a contact name to give you. They might be able to forward your resume somewhere. They might know of someone that's hiring or someone that could be retiring. So all of those, when I talk about leads, that's what I mean. And on the next slide, it just mentions that to really remember that you never know who could help move your career forward, in the sense that, so that volunteer I spoke about, okay, you know them in the context of volunteering, but they might be the very person that has a really good lead for you. They just aren't aware that you're even looking for work, that you're available, or that you want to switch jobs. So in all of your discussions with people, which now are happening, you know, virtually or on the phone or from a safe 2 meter, 6 feet distance. So, you know, if you're outside chatting, you see your neighbor in their yard and chatting about how they are, how you are, that type of thing, small talk. Make sure that you respectfully and tastefully kind of mention that you're looking for work. Pop that into the conversation. And it could be as simple as someone sees you and says, you know, how are you doing in this pandemic that's going on? What a strange situation. And instead of just saying good or so-so or okay, you can follow it up with, I'm doing well, or it's been a challenge, whatever you want to say. And I'm also looking for work. So that makes it even more challenging. And then that's probably going to, the other person will take the discussion from there. Oh, what type of work are you looking for? So make sure people know those two things, that you're available to work and the types of work that you're interested in. And this is when people, once they have that knowledge about you, they will share with you if they can think of any leads, any ideas. And if they don't have anything on the spot, well, it's in their mind now. They have that awareness of your current situation. And as they're talking to more people later that day or the next day, just in the days to come, if they hear of something, they may think of you and follow up with you. So that's a simple one.
Nicola, I was just going to mention too, it's also important when you are looking for a job to have a sales pitch. And so basically what that means is, what is your differential from the others? You know, as Nicola mentioned, you know, sometimes looking at a resume, you know, a cover letter, it doesn't really say who you are and what can you bring to the business. So it's really important to have, you know, a 1 minute, you know, sales pitch, because you know, it could be, you know, when we are out of this pandemic, we're hoping that you will connect with individuals and employers. And sometimes leaving messages or talking to them, you only have a short window of time to talk to them about what you can offer. Could be even if you're in an elevator with someone, and, you know, it could be a manager that you know, or somebody, as Nicola mentioned, at your church that knows that you're looking for a job. It's important to have, you know, what can you offer to that person or to that business? So it's really important to have that sales pitch. You know, a lot of, as Nicola mentioned, the online piece is really important now. LinkedIn, hopefully everyone has a LinkedIn account. Even this morning, I attended Ignite Fredericton had a town hall, and it was online. And I tell you, there was 150 people on the Zoom call. So there was a lot of questions asked, you know, everything kind of was, you know, online, but it was very interesting. And one thing that really stood out for me was with Lumen Ultra. And Pat Whalen is the CEO for Lumen Ultra. And if you're not aware, they've actually received a federal contract with the COVID-19 pandemic. They do a lot of lab testing, water testing, and sewage and whatnot. So they have received the contract for the federal government. And what he said really stood out for me. And he talked about, you know, being tenacious, following up, calling and talking. He said when the contract came out, he talked to 150 people in the federal government to get to the right one. And sometimes that's what it's all about, is those networking and getting to the right person that, knows of an opportunity and knows about a job. So that's really important. I know that there was an event earlier this week as well in regards to online interviews, and that was with Ignite Fredericton. So continue to look for those type of online events that are happening, because those are really great ways to network in the comfort of your home. Obviously, we'll probably talk about this later, but being a little bit more going out on a line and reaching out to people on a phone call, those are other options as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'll let Nicola continue, and I'm sure I'll add more as we continue, right, Nicola?
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much, Angela. And what you said about the sales pitch, this goes in perfectly to the next step. So start small. If you're nervous about networking, you've never done it before. So you can, when I say small, I just mean kind of in your comfort zone. Think of the people you already know, and then go bigger, because, to be honest, sometimes the people we know, they do have interesting connections, but it's still not with that one employer that we really are interested in, right? Nobody in our circle happens to know anyone at this organization. So if that's your case and there's a specific company you'd love to work for, then you need to be brave and you need to attempt to make that connection with them yourself. And that's called cold calling, I guess, just meaning, you pick up the phone, you don't know them at all, or cold emailing, I guess, or contacting them over LinkedIn, since, again, we can't, go to a face-to-face job fair and meet with them face-to-face at this point. You'd have to use those other means. But try that. It doesn't matter if you don't know them. You're going to introduce yourself to them. And normally in these situations, we would encourage you to try to set up some sort of a face-to-face meeting after that initial phone call, or that's what the email would be about. But since we can't do that, we can't do a traditional informational interview. We'll have to work with what we can in this social distancing circumstance. So that could be, it starts with email or it starts with LinkedIn, and it works into a phone call. Maybe it works into a video call. It really depends on what the employer is comfortable with and what they like to do, but those options are there. Or it just might be some email communication back and forth for now, but dare to do that. Angela and I both have stories about doing that. She has a really interesting one. Do you want to share that from when you were in Toronto?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that's why I love presenting with Nicola, because we're very similar. We both moved back to New Brunswick about 8 years ago, so we both had to go through this ourselves. So we haven't worked for government forever, like some people, and so we are fairly new in the province, back into the province of New Brunswick within the last years. So we had to do these networking pieces. So I can give you a few examples of networking that's helped me. For myself, I used to be in sales and human resources as I can't remember who mentioned that at first, but that was kind of my background. And so I love connecting with people. I love, talking and finding out more about people. And that's why I love being in human resources and recruitment and hiring people. It was really a great way to connect with people and find out about them and what their passion is and what they can bring to the business. But for myself, when I moved back to New Brunswick, or in general, my career path, when I originally, I've lived all across Canada. I was in Toronto for 5 years and 5 years in Calgary. But when I was in Toronto, I really wanted to work in sales. And prior to that, I was in banking. And I really wanted to work for Unilever. And Unilever is one of the top tiered packaged goods companies in the world. And they have an office in Toronto, and I really wanted to work with them. And for myself, I wanted to be in brand management. So what I did, and it's another suggestion for individuals looking for work, is trying to connect with the VP of marketing or one of the higher managers that do the hiring. Because word of advice, human resources, we're kind of the gatekeepers of the business, to be honest. really, if you're looking to get hired, it's really going to the manager who's going to be making that hiring decision. Usually the hiring manager is the one that makes the decision, and the human resources does up the contract. So it's really trying to get to that right person. And so for myself in Toronto, who I wanted to work for was the VP of marketing. And so I actually went on the Unilever website. You can actually get very detailed information about who the management, who the senior management are, and you can actually connect with them. You know, it's funny, there's a typically a direct line to the business. Hi, my name is Angela, love to talk to, at the time, I can't even remember his name, but I decided I'd like to talk to so-and-so, and of course they'll put you through if you're polite. Now, I never talked to this gentleman, but I would always call once a month, religiously. I would say to him, hi, my name is Angela, very passionate about working for your business. You know, I'm finishing up my master's in business, really want to work in sales, really want to work in marketing, would love to meet. Can you contact me? And I'll be honest, I never did talk to him, but I was interviewed out of 500 applicants for a position, for an assistant brand manager position. I didn't get the job, but that didn't deter me, because I moved back to the Maritimes and I reached out to human resources, and they actually had an opportunity for a sales person in the Maritimes, and they connected me to that manager, and I had an interview at a Tim Hortons in Nova Scotia, and I traveled the western side of New Brunswick for about 5 years. So I did eventually get into sales, and I think it was that persistence of standing out from others. I can also give you another example here just locally in New Brunswick. I had a passion for recruitment. I used to hire for technology companies. I used to interview, behavioral-based interviews. I used to work in long-term care and healthcare recruitment. And I really wanted to work for a tech company when I moved back to the Maritimes. And so I didn't know really anyone who was doing that. We're not familiar with what informational interviews are. And I guess, you know, that might be a point that we want to discuss, but basically what an information interview is finding out a bit more about the business. It's not going into, you know, if you have a coffee meeting with someone, it's not about asking them for a job per se. It's, you know, you don't go in asking them what is the salary, what jobs are available. Basically what you go into is a meeting and an opportunity to connect with, you know, a manager who is in charge of a, you know, a department perhaps, and you just find out more about the company. You know, what are their goals, what are their objectives, like what are they, you know, what kind of positions do they hire for. It's really finding out about the organization and how your skill set could fit into that business. It's not about directly asking them for a job. Obviously that's the goal at the end, but it's really finding out more about the company and what opportunities and what skill sets are needed, and to see if you would be a good match in that business, right? So
yeah. Definitely, that's a really good thing to mention. Yes, is that it kind of might seem strange. You know, you want to work there, so why can't you just say, "Hi, do you have a job?" But often these companies have so many people after them for a job that the answer will just be, you know, we don't have anything right now. We don't have any openings, or everything's posted online. You know, they kind of brush you off that way, and you want them to meet you. You want them to see you as a person, because that's when the magic happens, right? Is when we spend time with other people and we chat with each other, and you'll be memorable to them, right? In a positive way. So let's say just, you know, you had contacted someone on LinkedIn this week. Let's say yesterday you contacted somebody on LinkedIn, or you emailed them, and now it's moved to the point that you could have a telephone call with them or a video call with them. And that's how you're going to do your informational interview instead of going for coffee with them or going to their office. And these are some tips of things you can do to help yourself prepare for that. The first tip would be make notes. And I'd say if you were doing a face-to-face interview, that it would be the same thing. Make notes. So what are you going to talk about? Because you're the one that asked the manager or the, you know, whoever it is in this company, you reached out to them, you made contact, you asked for a quick chat with them to learn more about their company, and expressed interest. So you can't, you know, just on the video call, call them up and then just sit there kind of and wait for them to take the reins. You need to prepare talking points and questions that you want to ask them about their company. So prepare that, make sure you have your notes with you, because you can get nervous. That's really normal in person, in video, on the phone, you know, you can get nervous. And employers understand that, right? They've been there too. They might even be a bit nervous as well as they're doing this. And also be prepared. Angela mentioned that pitch, just meaning that, you know, you have a wrap up of maybe you're I don't know, a logistics person, like you've worked in shipping and logistics for 10 years. That's your specialty. And you're really good at organizing. You're good at problem solving. Like, have a few words about yourself that you can kind of give them a little pitch. And also be prepared as you're asking questions that the conversation, because it's not officially an interview for a specific job, it is a conversation. It's more informal in that sense. But you might have questions to lead the discussion, so there's not that awkward silence, and so they know you're prepared. But the employer will also be talking to you, and they might ask you questions about your work history and some specific things. So make sure you know your work history well. You know, you've reviewed it, and you're ready to talk about related experience, related skills, related knowledge, that type of thing. Because in a way, it's a little... It is a pre-screening really for an employer. They're going to, from this interaction with you, they'll know if they would ever take it a step further if they had an opening in their company or not. You know, that this doesn't seem like there would ever be a fit. And if it's a video call, then you want to dress very professionally, even though you might be at home. Make sure you're still wearing, you know, a collared shirt, a suit jacket, that type of thing, because this is their first impression of you. So you want them to always picture you as the best of the best, you know, very professional, and your hair's brushed and everything is good to go. Test your computer's video and audio in advance, so that way you can see, you know, am I positioned in a good spot? Is the lighting okay? That type of thing. Can they hear me? If you have someone to practice it with, even to do a Skype call with a family member, a friend, you know, someone you trust, or a Zoom call, whatever it is, do that. I would also recommend for an actual interview, you know, or an informational interview, that you try not to have too much in the background for a distraction. So it would be better, if possible, to have a neutral wall, a blank wall behind you, and definitely not a window behind you, because then it's just all that light's going to shine into the camera, and you will they won't be able to see you very well. Another recommendation too is sometimes if you prop your computer up on a stack of books, let's say, it'll help you be a bit more eye level with the camera and kind of a better angle of your face and everything too. So you can play around with that in advance. And then if you're in a home that has, you know, other people in it, make sure those people know that you're going to be on this professional call. And they can be in another room, and they can be quiet, right? So, because you want to try to make the best impression you can. And then, you know, you have that discussion with them, you're prepared, you see how that goes. And once it's done, I always recommend that you follow up with a thank you. It could be a thank you email. You might even, if you decide to pen them a little note, send them a thank you card, and then stay in touch over time with them, because not these opportunities, I guess, don't always just, one call doesn't turn into a job immediately. Like, there might be some things that have to happen. Say they might be thinking of you for a potential retirement. Well, that person is still going to work there for 3 more months, right? So you want to stay in touch.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Nicola, to mention. It is really important to stay in touch because, you know, one time, as Nicola said, is not going to probably cut it. It is a follow-up. It doesn't have to be every day or every week, but, you know, maybe once a month. Because what you really want is to be the top of the pile and the top of mind, right? You want to make sure that they're aware that you're still looking, you're still interested, you still have the right skill sets. So it's really making sure that you do continue to connect with the employers. And that is really important, you know, because just sending an email in, you know, you may get a job that way, but the reality is it's better to put a face and a name and to know who you are and what you can offer to the business. You know, I remember as a recruiter myself, I used to go through hundreds of resumes for a position. And I remember the ones that always stood out to me were the ones that would take that extra effort, whether to, you know, phone me or send me a direct email to ask specific questions. Those were the ones that really stood out for me. I'll never forget it. One of my colleagues had mentioned when he was looking for a job, he actually sent a shoe into the business. He said he wanted to get his foot in the door, so he literally sent a sneaker to get his foot in the door. So, you know, it's, you know, people are very creative of ways of getting their foot in the door and getting recognized. So, you know, be brave and, you know, just, you know, reach out to people. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Like I said, people are very kind and willing to help people for the most part. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that recruiters would definitely have some interesting stories, you know, of things that people have done to try to get a position. But sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but just do it anyway. You know, that's one thing that I've learned in life, and especially with job search, is that just because you don't feel comfortable, maybe you feel very nervous, you know, you're shaking, you're unsure of yourself. Often I didn't know if I was reaching out to the right person in the company or not, but I tried anyway, because for sure, if I did nothing, well, nothing was going to happen, right? And so it doesn't matter if your confidence level is perfect and, you know, you really even feel too sure about what you're doing. Just try it anyway. You might hear back, you might not. You know, you can try to reach out again. And sometimes there's things happening behind the scenes too that you don't know. Like Angela said, she never spoke on the phone with that man from Unilever, but obviously, you know, he got her messages, and she did make an impact, right? And be prepared for lots of no's, lots of silence, and so on. I most of the time when I think about it, you know, no, I wasn't offered a job immediately. It took a lot of time, or I'd meet with someone and find out, no, they didn't have anything there. But it was still another person meeting me in the community where I wanted to work, who now had a positive interaction with me, you know, knew something about my personality, my past work experience, my interests, and you never know how that might help you in the future. So I'd still always follow up with a thank you. And sometimes if we really hit it off, too, even if there was no opportunity for employment there, I'd still stay in touch over time, you know, wish them a happy Thanksgiving, whatever it is, kind of, you know, see if they're enjoying their summer, that type of thing. Because it's still okay to do that. That's not unprofessional to keep in touch like that. It's just pleasant wishes and kind of getting to know someone in a very small community such as Fredericton. So a couple more questions that we have to answer, and these were some specific ones that had been sent to us from members in your group. Should you still negotiate a job offer during this critical period? And Angela and I discussed this, and we both feel the answer to that is yes. You know, sometimes, you know, initially when you apply for a job what the wage is, and that's it, you know, and so you already know that if you apply, this is what it's going to be. But other times no wage is listed, and you know, when you're in the interview, you don't typically ask about salary and benefits and things like that. You wait until the employer asks you. They'll say to you at some point, you know, and what salary do you expect? So make sure you know what you are expecting, do your research, figure out what you want, and you can tell them that.
I was going to mention that. I was going to mention another thing, Nicola. I had attended last week a session on workforce planning, and so it's basically about what do businesses need, who do they need, the right time, the right position, and the right at the right time, so to speak. And so basically what they said, they are still hiring, and the reality is there are some industries that are struggling to find the labor, right? So definitely, you know, being able to negotiate a salary is something that you're still able to do. You know, and you know, businesses still need people. You know, we still need to push these businesses forward in the province. We still need to have an economic growth potential. You know, prior to this, there was going to be, you know, I can't remember the exact number. Help me here, Nicola. It was over 100,000 positions, I think, that are going to be available in the next 10 years due to retirement and attrition in the province. So, you know, we were already seeing a lot of this, but we do need those replacement positions. Plus, there are new opportunities that are coming. So, never be afraid to reach out. So.
Yes, definitely. So just because it is a critical time doesn't mean that in some positions, there won't be negotiation. You just have to wait and see what happens with that individual process. You know, first get the interview, see what happens there. If you know, they ask you what salary you expect, and once you receive a job offer, even if it isn't a pandemic, you would do what you normally would do if everything was fine, and you'd review that offer, you'd take time, you'd make a list of, you know, questions you have, things that need clarifying, and basically you thank the employer for that offer, tell them that you do have some questions, and that you wondered if they'd have time for a quick call. And so, you know, basically between receiving the offer and then you reviewing it and figuring out if it fits what you want, or maybe you want an extra week of vacation because that's what you have now at work, or maybe, you know, you were thinking the salary would be different, or it's something like, I don't know, they don't offer benefits and you want to find out if they would add health benefits. Whatever it is, just make sure you've really thought it through. You've written down, you know, your items that you want to talk about and ask for, and then you arrange a quick phone call with them is what it will probably be, and of course be positive, you know, and thankful on the call. Like, I'd probably start going through the things that, you know, you liked, to mention those, like the job description was great, of your duties, etc., whatever it is, but then with others, ask if they have some wiggle room, right? So, okay, you offered this for a salary. I was wondering if there was any wiggle room. That's currently what I'm making right now. And I was thinking more like this number, whatever it is, right? And they're probably not going to say yes or no right on the spot. They'll need to think about it. But, you know, they should be excited to have you on board if they're giving you this job offer anyway, and don't think you need to be afraid of them. They should be, you know, working with you and just seeing, yeah, I'm going to take this back to my team, whoever they need to take it back to, and see if they can do anything, right? And probably they'll be able to do something. I mean, if they can't, I guess you need to be prepared for that too. If they come back and say, like, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do, you know, what do you want to take that job? Is it still, do you think there's going to be value in it for you? And maybe the answer is yes. And so you take it and kind of work with it, or no, right? And you can just keep applying and try for something else. The next question, how can job seekers ask about a company's stability during COVID-19? because of course that would be a concern. You know, is this company really struggling from COVID-19? You know, or are they doing so terribly that they might not even be there by the end of the year? You know, if you're kind of worried about that. So at the end of the interview, what Angela and I recommended is typically that's when an employer would say, do you have any questions for us? And so you'd have your list of questions anyway, but this is the time that you can ask questions related to the current situation with COVID-19. So for example, these are just two that we jotted down to give you some ideas. You might ask them, have your business operations experienced many changes due to the current COVID-19 pandemic? And let them talk. You know, maybe you find out that there have been some changes, but overall what they share with you is there's still a lot of demand. They're doing really well. You know, they're going to make it through this. I don't know what they're going to say, right? So that's where you need to be a listener more than talking, kind of let them share and see how you feel about their answer. Another question is, what measures have you put in place to keep employees safe and healthy in the workplace? Because that's really important. They need to be following the guidelines of what we need to do to be safe and make sure that there's proper social distancing, proper cleaners, all of those different things. So those are fair questions to ask.
Yeah, and also like WorkSafe New Brunswick has a number of questions that you can ask, or what businesses are required to do when it comes to COVID-19 and the proper measures, as Nicola mentioned. You know, there's a number of different, you know, legal rights as well as an employee working during this time, right? You can refuse to work, and that's part of your human rights and employment standards. So, you know, there are other parameters that are in place, but really if you want to check to see, you know, what the operations or what businesses are required to do, you can go to WorkSafe. I know for myself, I've had a few businesses come onto my property and they were required by the province of New Brunswick to ask for specific questions. And so, you know, as a, you know, potential employee to work at the business, you have every right to ask, you know, what processes or what do they have in place to ensure your safety. So never be afraid to ask those questions.
Mm-hmm. And when you say that you've had businesses come on your property, just to clarify, you probably mean like say someone, if they worked for Rogers or Bell, like for your home internet, right? They're still working now and they might need to come in your home. So they would be asking you some questions for their own safety before they do that, right?
Exactly. And they never did come in. They just said even to get on the property of your home, they're required by the province of New Brunswick for safety to ask those questions. And I think some of them were, you know, have you been out of the province in the last 14 days? Have you been around anyone with the COVID-19? Does anyone have a cough or a fever? I can't remember the last question, but it was really just around their safety and ensuring that, you know, they're not going to be compromised. So.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then a final question that we had as a part of this presentation, and then we can hopefully open things up to answer some of your questions that you might have today for us. Are employers offering additional wage benefits other than the basic salary that you'd get during the COVID-19 situation? And the answer to that is it's really dependent. You know, some are offering additional money or a stipend of such, but not all companies, right? The best thing to do is ask them. Wouldn't you say, Angela?
Yeah, exactly. Like I know grocery stores as an example had, you know, they were paying an additional increase for some of the workers because they were, you know, it was a necessary service. We all need to eat, right? And they were recognizing that these employees were putting themselves at risk, you know, being around the public, but they were paying some of their grocery store employees an additional wage during this time. So, and it could be, you know, it could be just during the 6 to 8 weeks or however long the pandemic lasts, so they could incorporate that in, or, you know, it could be, you know, they're going to offer it all the time. But those are questions that you can ask when you negotiate your salary. And, you know, I'm sure that the employer would tell you what that includes and what it doesn't include. So.
Mm-hmm. And really the key to everything is just needing to ask, you know, before you go into an interview, before you have, you know, that video call, the phone call, make sure that you've really thought things through and you have a list of questions. You know what you're going to ask, and you know what you also might say if the answer is no to some things, kind of what, you know, what you would say next. So preparation is really going to make you feel more prepared and more confident overall. And the worst answer you can get is no, you know. So just ask. We've all got to do that. All right. So I think we're going to go into